The darkness of Blackston Maximum Security Facility pressed down upon the gathered inmates like a physical weight. Located deep within the mountains of rural Nepal, this international prison housed the most dangerous criminals from across the globe. Tonight, the facility buzzed with unusual energy as prisoners were escorted from their cells into the central amphitheater, a circular arena with tiered seating that descended towards a central platform. Commander Knox stood motionless on the platform, his black suit absorbing what little light existed in the room. The material, crafted from an experimental nanotechnology, rippled slightly despite the absence of wind. His scarlet cape hung heavily from broad shoulders, its edges trimmed with intricate golden patterns that told the story of his homeland in Mali. His face remained obscured by his mask, but even without seeing his expression, everyone could feel the cold fury emanating from him. Above, beyond reinforced glass, prison officials and international authorities watched nervously. They had reluctantly granted the commander this audience after his persistent demands. None of them knew exactly what he planned to say. Asha Chandra, warden of Blackstone, leaned forward in her seat. In 15 years of overseeing the facility, she had never allowed anything like this. A superhero addressing the inmates directly violated every security protocol, but given recent events, exceptions had been made. "Is this wise?" asked the representative from the Global Security Council beside her. "Perhaps not," Asha replied, her eyes fixed on the caped figure below. "But he gave us little choice after what happened in Singapore." Commander Knox waited until the last prisoner was seated. The inmates represented a veritable atlas of villainy. Technology terrorists from Silicon Valley, dark magic practitioners from ancient European orders, bioweapon engineers from hidden Asian laboratories, and mercenary warlords from African conflicts. Among them sat Asim Khoury, once his closest friend, now prisoner 7219. Their eyes met briefly across the distance, acknowledgement passing between them like an electric current. The commander raised his hand and the murmuring ceased. His voice, enhanced by the acoustics of the room rather than any technology, filled the space with crystalline clarity. "I am not here to inspire hope," he began, the words falling like stones into still water. "Nor am I here to threaten or intimidate you. I stand before you as a witness." Several inmates shifted uncomfortably. They had expected posturing, perhaps threats, maybe even an attempt at rehabilitation rhetoric. This measured tone unsettled them more than rage would have. 3 weeks ago, a residential tower in Singapore collapsed, killing 347 civilians, children returning from school, doctors who had just finished night shifts, artists, teachers, ordinary people. His voice remained level, but the golden embellishments on his suit began to glow subtly. "The authorities will tell you it was structural failure. Insurance companies are already preparing their statements about unforeseen circumstances." He paused, scanning the audience. Several faces looked away from his gaze. "But we all know the truth. That building was targeted because it housed the family members of 5 international judges. It was targeted because, next month, those judges will preside over the tribunal that will determine whether the Chimera Protocol becomes international law." A ripple of reaction moved through the audience. The Chimera Protocol was controversial legislation that would create a unified global system for tracking and containing individuals with superhuman abilities. Some saw it as necessary security, others as the first step toward registration and eventual incarceration of all enhanced persons. I have spent the past 3 weeks investigating the attack. I have followed every connection, traced every financial transaction, examined every communication. The golden accents on his suit pulsed brighter now, reflecting his controlled anger. "And the evidence has led me here." He turned slowly, making eye contact with specific inmates. Each one he looked at seemed to shrink slightly under his gaze. To this room. Too many of you. In the observation deck, Warden Chandra frowned. This was not what they had agreed upon. Commander Knox was supposed to deliver a general message about consequences and justice, not make specific accusations. "Should we cut this short?" the security representative whispered. "Give him a moment," she replied, her finger hovering over the emergency protocols button nonetheless. Below, Commander Knox continued. "I know that 11 of you in this room participated in planning the Singapore attack. 3 provided financing. 4 supplied the experimental explosives developed from quantum destabilization technology. 2 created the digital smokescreens that obscured the preparatory work, and 2 coordinated the teams on the ground." The tension in the room thickened. Even hardened criminals felt a cold sweat break out under the weight of his certainty. "But you were merely instruments. The true architect sits among you, believing himself beyond the reach of consequence because his hands remain technically clean." The commander turned towards Asim Khoury. The former technological genius and one-time ally of the superhero community sat perfectly still, his face expressionless. "We grew up together in Bamako," Commander Knox said, his voice softening slightly. "We played in the same streets, attended the same university in London, even discovered our enhanced abilities within months of each other. How did we arrive here, old friend?" Asim spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the refined accent of someone educated in elite international institutions. "Perhaps because you chose to work within a flawed system, while I recognized the need to dismantle it and build something better. By murdering innocents. By creating consequences for those who would cage people like us," Asim replied calmly. "The Chimera Protocol is nothing but sanctioned discrimination. Would you have supported legislation that targeted people based on skin color or nationality? Yet you remain silent when it targets genetic difference." The commander shook his head. "I have opposed aspects of the protocol publicly. You know this. But your methods destroy any legitimacy your arguments might have. Those 347 people had nothing to do with this conflict. Collateral damage is unfortunate but necessary in times of war," Asim said, repeating the cold calculus that had defined terrorist rhetoric for generations. The golden elements on the commander's suit blazed suddenly, causing several guards to raise their weapons. He raised his hand in a calming gesture before continuing. "I am not here to debate with you. I am here to make a promise." He addressed the entire room again. "To all of you who participated in the Singapore attack, and to anyone contemplating similar actions, you believe these walls protect you from consequence. You believe your complex networks shield your responsibility." He reached into a concealed compartment in his suit and withdrew a small crystal sphere that glowed with an inner light. The object was instantly recognizable to many in the room as an orb of absolute truth, an ancient artifact rumored to have been created by a long-dead civilization from the Indian subcontinent. I have spent years tracking down this artifact. Today I activated it for the first time. Murmurs erupted throughout the room. The orb was legendary but thought to be merely mythological by most. Its power was said to be the ability to reveal the complete truth of any event, showing not just what happened but the chain of causality and responsibility behind it. The orb has shown me everything about Singapore, every person involved, every motivation, every connection, and now I am going to release this knowledge to the world. Panic rippled through the audience. Even those not involved in the Singapore attack understood the implications. The orb would reveal not just immediate involvement, but complicity at every level. Financial backers, ideological supporters, those who looked the other way, all would be exposed. "You cannot do this," shouted one prisoner, rising to his feet. "International law prohibits the use of metaphysical artifacts as evidence in criminal proceedings." Commander Knox turned his gaze to the man. I am not submitting evidence to a court. I am sharing truth with the world. What happens after that is beyond my control. In the observation deck, officials were frantically communicating with their governments. The use of the orb represented a fundamental shift in the unspoken rules that had governed the dance between enhanced individuals and traditional power structures. Warden Chandra watched with a mixture of dread and fascination. "He is rewriting the rules of engagement," she whispered. Below, Asim stood up, his movement deliberate and calm despite the chaos erupting around him. "You realize what this means, old friend? You are abandoning the system you claim to defend, taking justice into your own hands." Commander Knox held the glowing orb higher. "No, I am simply ensuring that truth cannot be buried. What society does with that truth is still within the confines of its laws and institutions." "Naive as always," Asim replied. "Once you release that information, vigilante justice will follow. People will not wait for courts and procedures." "Perhaps," the commander acknowledged, "but continued silence means continued innocent deaths. I choose truth over comfortable lies." He turned to address everyone again, his voice cutting through the growing commotion. "The orb's revelations will be released in 24 hours. I came here not just to warn you, but to offer a choice." The room quieted slightly, curiosity temporarily overcoming fear. "Those who come forward voluntarily before the release with information about future planned attacks will receive consideration. Those who do not will face the full consequences of exposed truth." A bitter laugh came from somewhere in the crowd. "You expect us to betray our causes, our networks. For what? A slightly more comfortable cell." "For the opportunity to be part of building something better," Commander Knox replied. "The Chimera Protocol has flaws, yes. Many of your concerns about it are legitimate, but those flaws can be addressed through engagement, not destruction." He lowered the orb, returning it to his suit. 24 hours. Consider carefully." With those words, he nodded to the guards who began the process of returning inmates to their cells. As they filed out, many cast worried glances back at the black-suited figure who remained motionless on the platform, his red cape and golden details shimmering under the harsh prison lights. After the last prisoner departed, Warden Chandra made her way down to the platform. "That was not what we agreed upon, Commander." "No," he admitted, "but it was necessary. The international community will be in an uproar. Using an artifact of that power threatens the balance we have maintained for decades." He turned to face her directly. "The balance has already been disturbed. Singapore changed everything. We can either acknowledge that reality or continue pretending that the old rules still apply while more innocents die." She studied him for a long moment. "Is it real? Can the orb truly reveal everything you claim?" A slight smile appeared beneath his mask. "The legend of the orb has existed for millennia across multiple cultures. Its power is very specific, to reveal absolute truth about events and connections." "That does not answer my question," she observed shrewdly. 24 hours, Warden," he replied. "I suggest you prepare your facility for what comes after. Many powerful people will be implicated in what the orb reveals." As he turned to leave, his cape swirling behind him, she called out one last question. "And what about you, Commander? Are you prepared for what the orb might reveal about your own actions and choices?" He paused at the threshold. "The orb does not judge, Warden. It merely illuminates. We all cast shadows. The difference is whether we are willing to stand in the light and acknowledge them." With that, he was gone, leaving Warden Chandra alone in the vast amphitheater, wondering whether tomorrow would bring justice or chaos to a world already struggling to balance security with freedom, power with responsibility, and vengeance with redemption. In her office later that night, she received reports that 3 high-profile prisoners had already requested special interviews, claiming to have information about planned attacks. Whatever game Commander Knox was playing, it had already begun to shift the pieces on the board. She looked out her window at the distant mountains surrounding Blackstone facility. For centuries, the people of this region had believed that truth was like those mountains, immovable, unalterable, and ultimately indifferent to human desires. Perhaps the commander understood something about the nature of truth that others had forgotten. Or perhaps, she thought as she watched storm clouds gathering on the horizon, he was simply the first to weaponize it in a new kind of war.